Hello everyone, today I'm going to be showing you a new GoPro mount that I designed for my FPV mini quad. So for the past year or so, I've been running this mount right here. This is just a generic mount that I found on Thingiverse, but I liked it for a variety of reasons, which I'll get into later. But I saw a lot of room for improvement with this mount, so I went ahead and I designed a brand new mount based on this design. So let's go ahead and watch the time lapse of me designing that mount, and then we'll come back and I'll talk about all of the changes that I made and why it makes the new mount better. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed that time lapse. Now let's go ahead and talk about these mounts. Now I want to start off by addressing a big problem with 3D printing, and that is the strength. The strength of 3D printed components just does not compare to something that's been injection molded. So what that means is a 3D printed part is just going to have more material, which means more weight in order to get the same strength as an injection molded part. Now, another problem with 3D printing is kind of on the pilot side, and that is that people love to run all kinds of 3D printed components on their quads. And this ranges from arm bumpers to antenna mounts to even like GoPro mounts, right? And that adds a lot of weight to the quad, which you don't necessarily need. And specifically talking about GoPro mounts, these things can get to 60 grams or even more than that pretty easily, depending on the design of the mount. And it's just, to me, it's just unnecessary. Taking a look at the design of this mount I pulled off of Thingiverse, this one only weighs 20 grams with how I printed it. Now I printed it with 50% infill to get the weight down as much as possible, which does not equate to 50% weight, but it does decrease the weight significantly. And let's slide the GoPro in. And you can see that there's kind of a trade-off that I'm making already with the mount that I pulled off of Thingiverse, and that is it's not protecting the GoPro as much as that 60-gram GoPro mount that you see a lot. So the lens is exposed, the corners are exposed, but for an experienced pilot like me, I really only care about the flight performance of the quad. And how do you get better performance? Well, one easy way is decreasing the weight. So this mount from Thingiverse is already one of the lightest 3D printed mounts out there at around 20 grams if you print it the way I printed it. But I saw room for improvement in this mount. So the main thing that I saw was all of these sharp corners here. They're just kind of flopping in the breeze, and they're not absorbing any kind of stresses that the GoPro is putting on this mount. So if you think about it, really, all of the stress gets concentrated across this gap right here. And all of this other material is not doing anything to absorb any stresses. So it's kind of unnecessary. And that is kind of the main thing that I've done with the new mount. So once again, my goal with this new mount was to just decrease weight. So I've gotten rid of all of the sharp corners. I got rid of this cutout for the button and just shaved that whole part off. And I've also made everything have curves to it so that the stress can flow nicely, if you want to think of it that way, throughout the piece, and that avoids causing a stress concentration that can lead to failure. And another thing that I did was decrease the wall thickness from 2.5 millimeters on the old mount to 2 millimeters on the new mount. And this equates to about the same amount of material used, because remember, this one is printed with 50% infill, but this new one is printed as a solid piece. And that means that across this gap right here, there's really the same amount of material, if not more, because I made this a little bit wider, supporting the load that the GoPro is putting on the mount. Now, another thing that I did to save weight is that this back part right here used to be very long, so I made that a little shorter. The base itself is a couple millimeters shorter, and then we have a big speed hole in the bottom. And a little practicality modification that I did was the zip ties mount in the corners here, and the radius on the old mount is pretty large, so you can't really nestle the zip ties all the way in the corner, so it makes for not quite as stable of a base. So on the new one, I made that radius a little bit smaller so that I can really get those zip ties in the corners, and that makes it a little bit more stable in the pitch direction. So with all these changes, the new mount weighs 15 grams, so 5 grams lighter than the old mount, which I'm pretty happy with. I think there's still some weight that could be saved, but for now, this is going to be my go-to mount. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Maybe you learned something from it. And if you did enjoy this video, please make sure you give it a like. And if you enjoy this kind of content in general, please consider getting subscribed. It helps me out a lot. Thanks for watching.